Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our series talking with the 2023 CWI Summer Conference historians. Today, I'm here with Dan Vermilya, who works at the Eisenhower National Historic Site here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So, Dan, first, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
So my first question is that, when people think of Gettysburg, they don't immediately think of President Eisenhower. So can you talk a little bit about the history and significance of the Eisenhower site?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's something that a lot of our visitors are surprised to find that there is an Eisenhower National Historic Site in Gettysburg. We like to remind people that Gettysburg history, obviously centered on 1863, goes far beyond that year in the importance of this town and its area and its contributions to American and world history. The Eisenhower National Historic Site preserves the only home that Dwight and Mamie Eisenhower ever owned. The Eisenhowers were married for many decades, and the only place they ever owned a home together was right here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, when they bought a beautiful 189-acre dairy farm at late 1950. So this was after World War II, before Dwight Eisenhower was president of the United States. And this property became such an important part of the Eisenhower story together. This property became a very important part of Dwight Eisenhower's presidency. He would ultimately spend a year of his presidency here at his Gettysburg farm, over 365 days when you add up all the different days and weekends and weeks that he was here. He used his property to conduct diplomacy, greet world leaders, and he also used it as a place to get away and relax. And it obviously also became the primary residence for the Eisenhowers in their retirement. And the main significance of our site is just that. It's the only home they owned, and in that sense, it's a great window into the lives of Dwight and Mamie Eisenhower, these people whose lives span so much history over the course of the 20th century. Whose lives were intertwined with so many significant events and moments. And this Gettysburg property really reflects them in a number of unique ways. The Eisenhower home is a beautiful reflection of their personalities and interests and styles. And it's really a great place to talk about very important themes and subjects, like what does it mean to be a leader? How do we draw inspiration from the past for our present? So many historic sites touch on these. We do so in a unique and interesting setting here at the Eisenhower National Historic Site.
So because the Eisenhower site is directly bordering the battlefield, what are some of the opportunities or challenges that you guys face with programs, visitorship, that sort of thing?
Right, and I think that's a great question. It kind of gets to what I mentioned with a unique setup here, in the sense that we are a smaller national park located right next to a very large, very famous national park in Gettysburg National Military Park. Gettysburg obviously dwarfs us in terms of visitation, in terms of national interest, but it also gives us a window to explore some interesting storylines. So many people, when they think of Gettysburg, they think, and Gettysburg and presidents, they think just of Abraham Lincoln and the Gettysburg Address. I remind people that Lincoln spent one night in Gettysburg. There was another president who actually called Gettysburg home. So in our programming, we have opportunities to partner with our friends and colleagues at Gettysburg National Military Park, do some shared joint programming on occasion, talk about, from our side, our battlefield story is how the battlefield grew in the 20th century when Dwight Eisenhower was a young Army officer here in Gettysburg, on the fields of Pickett's Charge, where Camp Colt was located during World War I. We can explore that story, being located here, working alongside our friends at Gettysburg National Military Park. We can partner with them on some of our larger events, like our World War II weekend event. It takes place here at our site in Gettysburg, but also at the Battlefield Visitor Center. We've had exhibits and programs. So it provides a number of unique partnership opportunities, being located so close to a major national park like Gettysburg National Military Park, and a chance to explore stories that might not have specifically happened here, but right next door, that touch on our story as well. Because Dwight Eisenhower spent a lot of time here in Gettysburg out on the battlefield, and we're not doing his story in Gettysburg justice unless we talk about that side of Eisenhower's life.
And I guess my final question is, what can people who are going to be here for the CWI Summer Conference expect from your tour, or if they just happen to find their way to the Eisenhower site?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll be offering a program for the summer conference for CWI on Dwight Eisenhower and Gettysburg. Gettysburg and Eisenhower, a five-star general's connection to America's most famous battlefield. From when Eisenhower grew up in Abilene, Kansas, he had a fascination with history. He grew up knowing Civil War veterans in Abilene in the 1890s. He grew up reading about history, loving history. And his love of history, and especially his love of the Civil War, shaped his life in many ways. And it just so happened that he ended up spending significant moments and a lot of time in his life here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So our program is going to explore that. We're going to make a few different stops. We'll have a stop exploring Eisenhower's time at Camp Colt. It was his first independent command in 1918. He wanted to be in France getting combat experience during the Great War, as we know, World War I today. But instead he's here in Gettysburg, and sometimes that thing you don't want ends up being the best thing for you, where he's tackling unique challenges and learning how to solve problems in a time of crisis when responsibility is on his shoulders. So we'll tell that story, how he used the battlefield as a training grounds, which mirrors a larger story for Gettysburg in the early 20th century, that the battlefield was a training grounds for quite a few leaders who ended up playing a significant role in world events over the course of the 20th century. We'll take a stop, not here at the site itself, but on Warfield Ridge, having a look out over the Eisenhower farm to talk about the farm itself and Dwight Eisenhower's relationship with the battlefield, and explore some of his relationship with the commemoration of the battle during the Civil War centennial. There's several Confederate monuments that were placed right on the edge of President Eisenhower's farm here in Gettysburg that were dedicated while Eisenhower lived here at the property. So we'll talk about what Dwight Eisenhower thought about the Civil War, what he thought about the Gettysburg battlefield, his interactions with the battlefield landscape as Gettysburg grew and the commemoration of the battle changed over the course of the 20th century. And we'll also make a stop at the Soldiers National Cemetery within the broader Gettysburg National Cemetery to talk about Dwight Eisenhower being the keynote speaker for the 100th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address, delivering one of, I think, the best speeches of his lifetime, a speech that very few visitors know about. And we'll explore that connection at that stop between Dwight Eisenhower and Abraham Lincoln, and some personality similarities between these individuals, some leadership similarities between these individuals. And I think overall we'll explore throughout this program just what Gettysburg meant to Dwight Eisenhower, his many connections to this landscape, and hopefully offer some of the CWI attendees a unique opportunity to explore not just Gettysburg's history, but the history of the battlefield in conjunction with the history of this great American leader. And I would say, if you don't come on the program and you are watching this and attending CWI, or even if you're just watching this and in Gettysburg or interested in the Eisenhower site, please come see us. We would love to have you come and visit and be able to share the Eisenhower story with you during your visit to Gettysburg. We try to keep Mamie's warm hospitality alive with how we greet our visitors here at the Eisenhower site. We have house tours frequently during our summer season from spring to mid-fall. We have a lot of great programming that takes place here at the Eisenhower site, and also programming out on the Gettysburg battlefield, talking about Camp Colt, talking about some World War II casualties buried in the Gettysburg National Cemetery, a lot of different diverse programming in and around Gettysburg. So if you are interested at all in the story of Dwight Eisenhower, or just in the story of what Gettysburg was like in the 20th century, when you had this former five-star general and president of the United States living right next to the battlefield, there's so many interesting things to talk about and explore at Eisenhower National Historic Site.
Well, it sounds like an amazing tour, and I've been to the site. It's so much fun. So I really hope that people give it a visit sometime. And thank you so much for coming out to do this interview today.
Thank you, McKenna, and thank you to everyone at the Civil War Institute. Very nice to be with you today.